In Star Wars, Episode Roman III Revenge of the Sith, one of Anakin Skywalker's greatest frustrations was being denied the rank of Jedi Master despite being appointed to the Jedi Council. But what if the Council had granted him the title of Jedi Master? How would the fate of the galaxy have changed? This alternate timeline creates a vastly different Star Wars universe, where the Sith are defeated early, the Jedi survive, and Anakin fulfills his destiny without succumbing to darkness. Anakin Skywalker stood before the Jedi Council, his expression tense yet controlled. The weight of the moment pressed down on him as Master Yoda, seated at the center, peered into his soul with knowing eyes. Mace Windu, arms crossed, studied him carefully. Obi-Wan Kenobi, his mentor and friend, remained silent but watchful. The discussion had been long and intense. Anakin had proven himself time and time again on the battlefield. He had led Republic forces to victory in the Clone Wars, saved countless lives, and shown remarkable strength in the Force. Despite his youth, his skill was undeniable. Mace Windu's deep voice broke the silence. "Anakin Skywalker, the Council has debated your request." Anakin's heart pounded. He clenched his fists, bracing for the same rejection he had heard before. Yoda's ears twitched as he spoke. "Much potential in you, we see. A Jedi Master you have become." For a moment, Anakin couldn't believe it. His breath caught in his throat. The words echoed in his mind. A Jedi Master, the title he had longed for, the recognition he had fought for. Obi-Wan placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder. "You've earned this, Anakin," he said with a small smile. Mace Windu nodded. "Your leadership has been exceptional, but this responsibility is great. A Jedi Master must act with wisdom, patience, and clarity. Are you prepared for that?" Anakin straightened, determination burning in his eyes. "Yes, Master Windu, I will serve the Jedi Order with everything I have." The other masters exchanged glances, then bowed their heads in agreement. The decision was final. Anakin Skywalker, once the reckless Padawan, was now a Jedi Master. The tension that had gripped him for so long melted away. He felt at peace, if only for a moment. No longer an outsider, no longer underestimated. He was their equal. Palpatine would not be pleased. The Sith Lord had counted on Anakin's frustration and mistrust to pull him toward the dark side. But now, Anakin had what he had always wanted: respect, recognition, and a place among the greatest Jedi in history. Anakin Skywalker stood in the Jedi Council chamber, his heart pounding as he awaited their decision. Master Yoda, Mace Windu, and the other council members exchanged glances before Mace finally spoke. "You have proven yourself, Anakin. The council grants you the rank of Jedi Master." Anakin's breath caught in his throat. He had longed for this moment, but a part of him had expected rejection. Instead, they had accepted him. For the first time in years, he felt truly valued by the Jedi. As he left the chamber, Obi-Wan Kenobi walked beside him, sensing the shift in his former apprentice's emotions. "This is a great honor, Anakin," Obi-Wan said with a smile. "You deserve it." Anakin nodded, feeling a deep sense of belonging. The resentment that had once clouded his heart faded, replaced by a newfound trust in the Jedi Order. In the days that followed, he immersed himself in his duties as a Jedi Master. He participated in council meetings, advised younger Jedi, and even found himself engaging in deeper discussions with masters like Plo Koon and Kai-Adi Mundi. With his new role came greater responsibilities, but instead of frustration, Anakin felt pride. He was no longer treated as an outsider. He was respected, trusted. When Palpatine summoned him privately, Anakin listened to the Chancellor's words more carefully than before. "You know the Jedi. I do not truly trust you, Anakin," Palpatine said smoothly, but this time Anakin shook his head. "They trust me enough to make me a Jedi Master," he said firmly. "I don't need to doubt them anymore." Palpatine studied him, realizing his grip on Anakin was slipping. The darkness that had once lingered in Anakin's mind began to fade. He no longer felt torn between his loyalty to the Jedi and his fear for Padmé. He saw the Order not as an obstacle, but as a family. A family that had finally accepted him. Anakin Skywalker, now a Jedi Master, found himself with access to knowledge that had long been restricted. The Jedi Order had always warned against studying the dark side, but as a Master, Anakin was allowed to explore ancient texts and holocrons that revealed deeper truths about the Force. He read about Jedi of the past who had sought balance, walking a fine line between the light and the dark without falling into corruption. For the first time, he saw the dark side not as pure evil, but as an aspect of the Force that could be understood rather than feared. The Jedi I had always taught that emotions such as love and attachment led to suffering and the path of the Sith. But Anakin, now with the wisdom of a master, questioned whether denying emotions was truly the way forward. If the Force was meant to be balanced, then why did the Jedi reject an entire aspect of it? His thoughts often drifted to Padmé. His fear of losing her had been the reason Palpatine's promises had tempted him before. But now, with the Jedi trusting him, he didn't have to turn to a Sith Lord for answers. He delved deeper into lost Jedi philosophies, discovering ancient techniques that focused on harnessing emotions rather than suppressing them. Perhaps there was a way to use the Force to prevent death, not through unnatural Sith magic, but through understanding the natural cycles of life. As he meditated, he reached out through the Force, sensing the energies that connected all living things. He felt the life within Padmé, the growing presence of their unborn children, and the flow of the Force around them. He realized that his fear had clouded his judgment. Instead of obsessing over preventing death, he needed to embrace the present and strengthen his connection to those he loved. Yoda and Obi-Wan noticed the change in Anakin. He was calmer, more centered, yet more powerful than ever. He no longer acted out of desperation or anger. Instead, he used his emotions as a source of strength, finding clarity in the Force like never before. The Jedi Order, seeing his growth, began to reconsider their rigid stance. Anakin had shown them that fear of the dark side only gave it power. True mastery of the Force meant understanding both its light and its darkness, without losing oneself to either. Anakin Skywalker stood in the center of the Jedi Council chamber, his heart pounding as the words echoed in his ears. "You are granted the rank of Jedi Master." The weight of those words settled over him, washing away the frustration that had lingered in his mind for so long. No longer was he just a tool of the Council, a pawn in their game. They respected him, they trusted him, and with that trust, something within him shifted. For months, Darth Sidious had whispered in his ear, feeding his doubts and insecurities, twisting his fear for Padmé into a weapon. But now, the Chancellor's influence no longer held the same power. Anakin had what he always wanted: acknowledgement, acceptance, and authority within the Jedi Order. Palpatine's words of deception lost their grip on his heart. As he left the council chamber, the hologram of Supreme Chancellor Palpatine flickered to life on his comlink. "My boy, I sense you are troubled." Palpatine's voice was smooth, inviting as always, but Anakin was not troubled. For the first time in a long while he felt at peace. "The Jedi, I have made me a master," Anakin stated firmly. "I don't think they are as blind as you've said." Palpatine paused, just for a fraction of a second, an imperceptible hesitation that betrayed his frustration. "Ah, wonderful," the Chancellor replied. "Then you understand the burden of wisdom. There are things the Jedi I will never teach you, my boy. Secrets of the Force they fear." Anakin narrowed his eyes. He had always listened before, drawn to the promise of greater knowledge, the promise of saving Padmé, but now, as a Jedi Master, he would have access to that knowledge himself. He didn't need to rely on whispered temptations. He could uncover the mysteries of the Force within the Temple's vast archives without betraying everything he stood for. For the first time, doubt crept into Palpatine's voice. "Surely you still seek the power to protect those you love," he urged. Anakin clenched his jaw. "I do," he admitted, "but I will find it as a Jedi, not as your apprentice." Silence stretched between them, then Palpatine sighed. "I see." The transmission cut out, and with that, the first thread of Palpatine's control over Anakin unraveled. Anakin stood on the balcony of his apartment on Coruscant, gazing at the city lights. The weight of the war and his new responsibilities as a Jedi Master pressed upon him, but for the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. Padmé emerged from inside, her presence bringing warmth to the cool night air. She gently placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, sensing the quiet turmoil within him. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "The Republic will be safe now." Anakin turned to her, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "I never thought I could stop him. Palpatine had been a part of my life for so long, but in the end I saw through his lies." Padmé smiled softly. "And now you don't have to carry that burden alone." For the first time, Anakin allowed himself to believe in a future beyond war and betrayal. With Palpatine gone, there was no longer a shadow looming over his every decision. The Jedi Order had changed, and though there were challenges ahead, he no longer felt trapped between duty and love. As he held Padmé's hands, he could feel the life growing inside her, their child, A future he had feared would be lost was now something he could embrace without secrecy. "I won't let anything happen to you," Anakin promised to either of you. Padmé placed her other hand over his. "We will face everything together, Anakin. No more secrets, no more fear." Anakin nodded, finally understanding what it meant to be truly free. Not from duty, not from responsibility, but from the chains of doubt and manipulation that had nearly led him down a darker path. The Jedi Council had granted him their trust, and in return, he had chosen to trust himself. He would no longer seek power out of fear. Instead, he would use his strength to protect those he loved. That night, as Anakin held Padmé close, he no longer saw nightmares of fire and destruction. Instead, he saw a future filled with hope, a future where he, Padmé, and their child would forge their own destiny. Anakin stood in the heart of the Republic Senate, watching as Padmé Amidala addressed the assembly. The death of Emperor Palpatine had left a power vacuum, but instead of chaos, the Republic found a chance for renewal. With corruption exposed and the Sith no longer pulling strings from the shadows, a new path forward was possible. Padmé, alongside Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, took the lead in rebuilding the government. They called for immediate reforms, pushing for transparency, fairness, and an end to the manipulation that had plagued the Republic for so long. Without Palpatine's iron grip, the Senate could finally act with freedom, no longer controlled by fear or deceit. Anakin, now a Jedi Master, played a critical role in this transition. Though he remained loyal to the Jedi, he no longer saw them as separate from the Republic. Instead, he worked to bridge the gap between the Jedi and the Senate, ensuring that the Order would serve as protectors of peace without becoming pawns in political games. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda advised caution, reminding Anakin of the dangers of too much Jedi involvement in political matters. Yet Anakin argued that the Jedi could not afford to remain distant, not after everything they had been through. They had to evolve, just as the Republic was evolving. The Clone Wars had left countless systems devastated. With the conflict over, resources were redirected toward rebuilding. Planets that had suffered under war, such as Ryloth and Mandalore, received aid, and new alliances were formed. Instead of an empire built on fear, the Republic was slowly transforming into a government that truly served its people. Palpatine's secret plans were uncovered, revealing hidden fleets, vast war funds, and entire armies that had been meant to enforce his rule. Rather than use these for conquest, the new Senate repurposed them for defense and reconstruction. The Republic's military became a peacekeeping force rather than a tool of oppression. As time passed, the Jedi Council itself began to change. They reevaluated their strict teachings, realizing that emotion did not always lead to the dark side. Anakin, having walked the edge of both light and dark, became a symbol of this balance. The Jedi of this new Republic would be more understanding, more compassionate, and more willing to adapt. A future that once seemed doomed to darkness now held hope. Anakin stood before the Jedi Council, no longer a knight but a master. The weight of the title settled on his shoulders, bringing with it a new sense of responsibility. No longer was he an outsider looking in. He was part of the future of the Jedi Order, a future that needed to change. The war had shown the flaws in the Jedi's rigid ways. Attachment was forbidden, emotions were suppressed, and yet, Anakin knew that love and compassion were not weaknesses. They were strengths. He had been forced to hide his love for Padmé, but now, as a Jedi Master, he had the influence to challenge the Order's outdated rules. Obi-Wan Kenobi watched his former apprentice with cautious optimism. He had always believed in Anakin's potential, but he had also seen how dangerous his emotions could be. Yet now, Anakin stood with a sense of calm he had not seen before. With the war ending and the Sith defeated, perhaps the Jedi could finally take a new path. Master Yoda, wise beyond centuries, observed the shift in Anakin. He had once warned against attachment, but he could not ignore the truth. The Jedi had lost many of their own because of their inability to adapt. Perhaps it was time to reconsider their ways. In the days that followed, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda led discussions among the Council. The Jedi Order needed to evolve. No longer would they demand that their members sever all personal connections. Instead, they would teach balance, understanding that love, when guided by wisdom, could be a force of strength rather than a path to darkness. Padmé, now playing a key role in the rebuilding of the Republic, watched Anakin's transformation with pride. He was no longer torn between two worlds. He was both Jedi and husband, proving that the two could coexist. The Jedi Temple became a place of learning once more, not just in the ways of the Force, but in the complexities of life itself. Younglings and Padawans were taught to embrace their emotions, to understand them rather than fear them. The era of a strict, emotionless Jedi was over. For the first time in centuries, the Jedi were not just warriors or peacekeepers. They were truly guardians of balance. Anakin stood in the Jedi Council chamber, the weight of his new title pressing on him. He was a Jedi Master now, granted the respect and authority he had long desired. But with that power came responsibility. The words of Chancellor Palpatine still echoed in his mind, the promise of saving Padmé, the revelation of Darth Plagueis, and the dark secrets of the Sith. Yet as a master, Anakin had gained wisdom. He saw now what Palpatine was doing. The Chancellor had spent years manipulating him, twisting his emotions, and preying on his fears. Anakin clenched his fists. He would not be used any longer. Determined, he made his way to Master Mace Windu, who stood with Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, discussing the fate of the Republic. The war was coming to an end, but the threat of the Sith still loomed. Anakin took a deep breath. "The Chancellor is the Sith Lord we've been looking for," Anakin said firmly. Mace Windu's eyes narrowed. Obi-Wan looked stunned, exchanging a glance with Yoda. The room fell silent as the weight of Anakin's words settled over them. "If what you say is true," Mace Windu finally spoke, "then Palpatine must be arrested immediately." Anakin nodded, but this time he wasn't asking to go alone. He was a Jedi Master now. He had earned his place among them. "I'll go with you," Anakin said. "Together we can end this." Mace Windu studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Very well." Gathering a team of Jedi Masters, they moved quickly. The fate of the Republic depended on their actions. As they approached the Chancellor's office, Anakin could feel the dark energy radiating from within. The doors slid open, revealing Palpatine sitting calmly at his desk. He looked up, a slight smile playing on his lips. "So, it has come to this." Mace Windu stepped forward. "In the name of the Galactic Senate, you are under arrest, Chancellor." Palpatine rose slowly, his eyes meeting Anakin's. "And you, my boy?" he asked, his voice smooth, calculated. "Have you come to kill me?" Anakin's grip tightened on his lightsaber. He knew Palpatine was trying to manipulate him again, but he wouldn't fall for it this time. "No," Anakin said. "I've come to stop you." For a moment there was silence. Then, with blinding speed, Palpatine ignited his crimson blade, leaping toward them. The Jedi ignited their sabers in response, and the battle began. Anakin Skywalker stood alone in the Jedi Temple archives late at night, surrounded by dim lights and rows of ancient texts. The silence was calming. For once, his mind wasn't racing with visions of Padmé dying or the sounds of war echoing in his ears. Now that he was a Jedi Master, the Council had granted him access to deeper knowledge. Teachings that had once been forbidden, writings from ancient Jedi, holocrons that spoke not just of the light, but of the dark. He didn't seek this knowledge to gain power, he sought it to understand. He remembered Count Dooku, once a Jedi Master who had fallen. He remembered tales of others who had strayed too far. But what drove them to that point? Was it truly weakness or something else? Anakin read of Jedi who had studied the dark side, not to embrace it, but to resist it more fully. He found a passage written by Master Thame Cerulean. To understand the dark side is not to fall to it. Only fear and attachment cause the descent, but knowledge brings balance. Anakin closed his eyes. He had always been told to avoid the dark, but maybe that fear of knowledge was part of the problem. Maybe if the Jedi had allowed a deeper understanding, they wouldn't have lost so many. He meditated for hours, letting the Force move through him. He felt the light, steady, warm, but he also felt a shadow in the corner of his mind. Not evil, just misunderstood. He reached out to it, not with hunger, but with calm, and it did not consume him. He pulled back, realizing something powerful. The dark side wasn't a monster waiting to devour him. It was a part of the Force, one that needed to be acknowledged, not feared. Anakin began to see a path forward, one where the Jedi could evolve, one where the mistakes of the past wouldn't be repeated. He wasn't afraid anymore. He would walk the line, and he would bring true balance to the Force.